Listen, everyone, you all need to understand this, okay? The explicit messaging from the Democratic Party right now is that if you in any way question their relationship to Israel or Israel's behavior, you're an anti-Semite. What they're essentially saying is, if you are moral and truthful, you're an anti-Semite. And a lot of people are going to hear that and go, okay, I guess I am then. That's really fucking bad. I don't think that's I think that's a false dichotomy. But that is 100% the dichotomy the Democrats are forcing on people right now. You're an anti-Semite if you offer any of these like objectively correct complaints about Israel or our relationship to Israel. And a lot of people are not going to take that, and they're going to believe the messaging, and they're going to accept that dichotomy at face value. And I think that's horseshit, and I think it's extremely anti-Semitic. And if I was an American Jew, and I was looking at the Democratic Party pointing at fucking Israeli war crimes, bombing hospitals, bombing schools, pointing at that and going, yeah, if you criticize that, blame that guy. Pointing at me, a hypothetical American Jew, I'd be fucking mortified. Oh, you don't like that? You don't like Israel using white phosphorus on a fucking hospital? Well, maybe you should take it up with this guy. And I'm just standing there with a little kippah or whatever, you know? It's insane. I think it's extremely anti-Semitic. Standing there with some matzah and whatever other things Jewish people have. Me, it's just standing there with a dreidel. I don't know, type shit. Thank you. No, the conflation's extremely dangerous to Jews. You know, you're telling the whole country like, hey man, this is the tiny like ethnic group that we're destroying the country for. Okay, kind of fucked up of you to do that. We hear what you say, but what are our alternatives? The two parties that will realistically win office have the same position with regard to like infinite deference to Israel. Yeah. But America is growing less and less pro-Israel every day. Take advantage of that, you know? The more we talk about it, the more impossible it'll be for politicians to win elections if they are like branding themselves with that label, you know? That's what you got to hope for. Won't they just lie? Sure, but there are consequences to lying in the long run. Also, at least if people lie and then change their positions after they get in office, at least that makes people angry, right? Guys, I know you're feeling impatient, but please understand, it's only been a couple of years since October 7th, which marked the beginning of a massive fucking plummeting of democratic support for Israel. Like, I know it seems like there's no hope and it's taking forever, but legitimately, for nearly 100 years, American support for Israel has, like, kind of slowly wavered. Like, for the Democrats, it's looked like this, you know? So just keep that in mind. It's actually shifting very, very quickly by the standards of like big, you know, geopolitical issues and how the American population feels about them. We were in Iraq for like, I mean, informally we still are, but like in the Iraq war, it took like 10 years, you know? We were in Afghanistan for like, you know, more than 20. Thank you for understanding how important it is to be articulate in your criticisms of Israel and Zionism. Keep the sword of discernment sharp, Duder. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm just scared. I grew up in a Jewish neighborhood. A bunch of my friends were Jewish. They're just, you know, I mean, obviously they're just regular people, but I mean, like, there was nothing about them dispositionally that lended them to, I guess, you know, supporting a genocidal ethno-state. It's just, it's surreal to me because I know that if I was born today, or sorry, not born today, if I was in high school today, still in the neighborhood where I grew up, I would have a bunch of friends and I'd be surrounded by Jewish Iranian kids. And the conversations that I would have with them in that timeline would be so different, and they'd be so influenced by contemporary events. You know what I mean? They'd be so influenced, and I feel like there'd be so much discourse about Israel, and I'm sure a lot of them would support Israel because their parents did or whatever else. But the conflation between Zionism and Judaism and so on and so forth, I just feel like it would lead to a much nastier environment than the one that I grew up in. Just weird to think about. I was watching a Marvel Rivals tier list, and a guy called a broken character Netanyahu and pronounced it wrong. That's so fucking funny, dude. In 50 years, every AI-generated image will look like Charlie Kirk, and like people will use Israeli as a synonym for bad 50% of the time. No one will even know what Israel is because the Middle East will be a smoking crater. Have you seen Norm Finkelstein about a year ago say there's no rise in anti-Semitism in the U.S.? okay, this is a really delicate subject, so I want to speak about it clearly. There is absolutely a rise in anti-Semitism in the US. However, it is highly overstated and weaponized by genocidal maniacs. It does exist, but it's very difficult to get any concrete statistics on it because a lot of the people who track those statistics, like the ADL, are open liars, and their definition of anti-Semitism is insane. And also, speaking frankly, the Jewish community is being radicalized into hysteria with a 24/7 propaganda campaign convincing them that people like Zoran Mamdani are anti-Semitic. So, much the same way that you can't trust self-reported vaccine injuries from Republicans because they're being hyped up into hysteria over every stubbed toe being a product of the, the jab. It's unfortunately like the well is just too poisoned, when it comes to accusations of anti-Semitism. However, is anti-Semitism on the rise? Absolutely. But also we need to be careful with what we mean because anti-Semitic bigotry is very different from other kinds of bigotry, right? Like, I hope this doesn't need saying. I hope everyone understands this, but like bigotry against black people isn't just interpersonal. It prevents them from getting jobs. It denies them opportunities. Jewish people, by and large, these days, don't really have difficulty getting into the schools and jobs they want on account of their Jewishness. I'm sure it happens sometimes, but that's not the nature of the bigotry. The nature of the bigotry is more of an otherization, right? The idea that Jews are a separate, nefarious group of people. That's like it's contextualized differently. Like black people aren't usually the victims of bigotry through the same kind of distinction or otherization. You know what I mean? The idea that black people are like this mysterious separate community that doesn't commute. That's not really true, right? Like black people are very present in daily life and social life. Most people have met a black person. Jews are less common in the United States. It's just a different kind of bigotry. So I think that Norm Finkelstein is saying what he's saying because he's very, very he's very frustrated by the fact that many Zionists, many of whom are Jewish, he's Jewish, right? Finkelstein, are using these inflamed and often unsubstantiated accusations of anti-Semitism as a way of legitimizing genocidal violence, which is bad. And I think that Finkelstein is correct to say that it's bad. But I also think there is a rise in anti-Semitism. And it's worth pointing out, by the way, that a significant part of my personal, I guess, investment in this issue is because I really want to see, frankly, I want to see Jews come out the other side because they have been pariahs for like basically all of history, and that sucks. And it feels like in the post-World War II environment, we were finally building a world where anti-Semitism was not to say non-existent, but like, much more minimal. Certainly anti-Semitism in the United States has waned considerably in the past 80 years. We went from not taking Jewish refugees from Germany because we didn't want them in our cities to like nowadays the idea of that is insane, right? Bigotry against black people 50, 100 years ago isn't that dissimilar to bigotry against black people today. It's lessened in severity, but the nature is comparable, I think. But bigotry against Jewish people 100 years ago and today, not even comparable. I really don't think the average American today I don't really think that they're exposed to the socialization that caused older forms of anti-Semitism. I'm sure some of them are. I just don't think it's like, I guess I would expect every American to at least be familiar with the tropes of racism directed against black people, right? Thugs, low IQ, watermelon, whatever, right? Whatever stupid bullshit, I'd expect people to be familiar with the lexicon. But when it comes to Jews, people make like miserly jokes, but in terms of like the real substance of anti-Semitism, a lot of it, at least in America, has dried up, But I feel like this might risk, igniting it a little bit. All this, what's happening right now. I feel like as a product of I mean, like, Jewish people have been thrown back into the limelight because of this, and in the most negative possible way. Like, and Democrats and Republicans both are using them as a shield. They're doing it over and over and over again. They're like, yeah, everyone, come look at this tiny minority in the United States. They're the ones doing it. It's for them. It's all for them. Like, crazy, man. Fucking insane. They are getting thrown under the bus. It's very cynical and it's very bigoted.